Impossible. Those 3 children, they look exactly like him. At the lavish high society gala in Chicago, Theo Kensington, the famed real estate tycoon who once believed he could control everything, suddenly saw Simone, the love he had lost. But beside her wasn't just the haunting allure of years past. There were also 3 little triplets, their hair, their eyes, their smiles so eerily identical to his own. Theo's heart clenched. What did 5 years of living in glory mean, if those 3 little lives might truly be his own flesh and blood? And more terrifying still, Simone was leading them out the door, out of his life, once again. Could he seize the truth before it vanished forever? Music swelled and rippled through the grand hall of the Chicago Art Museum. The cello and violin wove together like waves, lifting the air into elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast light down on gleaming marble floors, reflecting gowns that shimmered and tuxedos cut to perfection. This was where the city's most powerful displayed their brilliance, and no one embodied that cool command more than Theo Kensington, the real estate millionaire. The man who had turned barren lots into soaring skyscrapers walked as though the entire room revolved around him, a glass of red wine in hand, a half-smile on his lips. Theo carried the aura of someone who had never known defeat, but inside, only he knew the hollow ache that had stretched on for 5 years. The hollow that bore a name, Simone. And then, as if fate had chosen a cruel moment to mock him, it happened. Among strangers' faces, he saw her, Simone Jamerson. The world went dark around him. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses all blurred into a faint hum. Beneath the warm golden glow spilling from antique frames, Simone stood, more radiant than memory itself. The velvet green gown embraced her curves. Her hair was tied low with neat grace, her face carrying the calm of a woman who had weathered storms. But those eyes, those deep brown eyes that had once been his peace, now made his chest tighten with pain. He hadn't yet caught a full breath when he saw something worse. Simone was not alone. Clinging to her gown were 3 little ones, no more than 4 or 5 years old. Triplets. And they bore his very face. Chestnut hair falling across foreheads, storm-gray eyes like mirrors of his own boyhood. Every clumsy move, every curious glance, cut into him like a blade. They looked so much like him that no test could prove what Theo already knew: these were his children. The wineglass trembled in his hand, red liquid rippling like blood. He froze, rooted to the marble floor. Heat surged to his face. His heart thundered so hard it hurt his chest. Years of believing the past was buried erupted within him. He saw their wedding day again, her dazzling smile. He saw the last moment as she walked away, tears swallowed by the cold night. And now she had returned, carrying 3 living proofs of the love they had once abandoned. Simone turned slightly, catching his stare. For the briefest instant, her calm cracked. Her eyes widened, shock flashing through. Then at once, the instinct of a mother took over. She placed a hand on 2 boys' shoulders, pulling them close, as though building a wall of protection. Theo's throat closed. Words pressed against it. Why? Are they mine? Why didn't you tell me? But none escaped. He could only look at her, pleading through his eyes. The glittering hall seemed to shrink to just the 2 of them and 3 children. The crowd became shadows, their laughter mere background noise. In the brilliance of the night, a naked truth shone. Love had never died, it had only been buried. And now it returned, carrying a responsibility he had never dared to face. One boy lifted his eyes to him. Those eyes, his own, wide and innocent, curious, as if asking, "Who is that man? And why does he look so sad?" Theo's heart broke. He knew that if Simone turned away, everything would vanish again. His only chance at redemption, at reclaiming a family, was slipping from his grasp. He inhaled sharply, his grip tightening around the wineglass until his knuckles turned white. And when Simone leaned ever so slightly, as if ready to lead the children toward the exit, panic shattered his paralysis. Simone! Her name tore from his chest, echoing through the museum hall like the gunshot that begins a long-delayed war. Dear audience, pause for a moment, take a sip of water, then stay with me for the rest of this gripping story. Comment the number 1 if you find this tale fascinating. And don't forget to hit subscribe to the channel. Theo's voice tore through the refined air of the museum like a blade. A few guests lifted their heads, wine glasses frozen mid-air, curious eyes darting toward him. Simone froze. Her hand tightened around the children's small fingers, as though afraid that in just one careless second, someone might take them away. Theo didn't hesitate again. He set his glass onto a passing waiter's tray and strode quickly across the hall. The marble floor echoed with the firm strike of his leather shoes, every step carrying a storm within. Eyes followed him, but he didn't care. All he saw was Simone, and three little faces mirroring his own. The glass corridor opened to a side hall glowing with light. Outside, Chicago's night sky blazed, skyscrapers glittering in the windows. There, Simone stopped, as if torn between walking away again or facing the past. Theo closed in. Only a few steps separated them, yet for him, it was the long 5-year stretch of regret. He stopped short close enough to see every detail of her face, still beautiful, but harder now, wearier. Simone, his voice rasped, a single word carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. She lifted her gaze. Her brown eyes sparked cold and trembling all at once. She said nothing, only drew the two boys closer. The last one, curls tumbling over his forehead, clung to her gown and stared at Theo with open curiosity. In that moment, Theo felt himself shaking, not from fear of Simone, but from fear of losing this chance again. He wanted to run forward, to wrap all 4 of them in his arms, but her guarded eyes stood like a fortress. He breathed deep, forcing steadiness into his voice. "Who are they, Simone?" Her eyes flickered, a tremor breaking through, but in a heartbeat her composure returned. She bent, brushing the hair of the boy on her left. "This is Isaiah," she said softly, then placed a hand on the shoulder of the boy in the middle. "This is Micah." Finally, she clasped the hand clutching her gown. "And this is Xavier." She spoke each name with tender pride but offered no answer to the truth Theo craved. No admission, no recognition that they carried his blood. Theo's chest tightened. He studied each familiar feature, every gesture. He didn't need her to say it. He already knew. Yet still he longed for her words, for clarity. A heavy silence blanketed the corridor. From the main hall came faint echoes, laughter, music, but between them stretched only suffocating quiet. Then one of the children, Xavier, looked up, his voice innocent, curious. "Mommy, who is that man? Why is he looking at us like that?" The small question, so pure, pierced both their hearts. Simone faltered. She pressed her lips together, her eyes darting away, unsure what to say. Theo's fists clenched, his heartbeat pounding. He wanted to cry out, "I'm your father," but his lips trembled, refusing. Simone bent, whispered something into Xavier's ear, then turned as if to leave. That movement shattered Theo's restraint. He stepped forward, his voice breaking. "Please, Simone, don't go. Not again." She stopped. Her shoulders quivered, but she didn't turn back. The 3 children clung to her, their innocent eyes wide, caught in a storm they couldn't understand. In the towering glass, their reflections loomed a solitary man, a resolute woman, and 3 blameless children trapped between 2 worlds. The Chicago night still glittered outside, but for Theo, everything narrowed to one desperate question. Could he keep them here, before fate's cruel hand swept them away once more? All right, my dear audience, if you're still watching and finding this story gripping, drop a comment with the number 1. Or write, "I'm still here to keep listening." Simone stood frozen in the glass corridor, her shoulders trembling faintly. The children clung tightly around her legs. Behind her, Theo waited, his gaze relentless, as though trying to pierce the wall she had built. A brief hesitation, then she drew a deep breath, turned, and spoke in a low but resolute voice. "Come with me, just 5 minutes." Theo nearly stopped breathing. It wasn't forgiveness, but at least, it wasn't rejection. She led the children into a side gallery. The room was hushed, bathed in soft golden light that spilled over abstract sculptures. No music here, no curious crowd, only the sound of their breathing, and the small, steady steps of 3 boys. Simone pointed toward a bench along the wall. "Sit there for now, my loves. Look through this picture book." The children obeyed. Isaiah and Micah flipped through the thickly illustrated pages, while Xavier sat quietly, his eyes lifting now and then toward Theo, curious but wary. At last, a sliver of private space opened for the 2 adults. Simone stood a few steps away, arms crossed tightly in front of her chest. an invisible barrier between them. "What do you want, Theo?" she asked plainly, her voice low but trembling within. He swallowed hard, searching for words. All the sentences he had rehearsed through lonely nights shattered. Only the raw truth remained. I just need to know. They're mine, aren't they?" Simone closed her eyes for a moment, as if she had long expected this question but still found it painful. When she opened them again, her gaze was sharp, both defensive and wounded. "And if they are, what then? Do you show up as some savior after 5 years of vanishing?" Theo faltered, his shoulders stiffening. He stepped forward half a pace, then stopped, afraid to push her further away. "I don't know, Simone. But when I saw them, I knew I couldn't turn my back. I've missed too much already. I can't miss any more." She let out a short laugh, bitter and humorless. "You speak as though it was your choice, but you left everything behind. When I needed you most, where were you?" The air grew heavy. Behind her, a stone sculpture of 2 figures bound together loomed silently, mocking them. Theo pulled his hand from his coat pocket, rubbed his forehead, his voice dropping low. "I know I was wrong. That night, I should have stood by you. I should have defied my family, ignored the whispers, but I was a coward." Simone turned her face away, her eyes glinting with restrained tears. She didn't want him to see. "Yes, you were a coward, and I had to face it all alone, the gossip, the contempt, the fear of knowing I was carrying a child. You weren't there." Each word struck like a blade. Theo moved closer, his voice urgent. "But you didn't tell me. You disappeared. Simone, if you had said, if I had known you were pregnant." She snapped back, eyes blazing. "And what would you have done, Theo? Fought for us? Are you sure? You couldn't even stand up to your own mother. You couldn't protect a wife. Why should I believe you would protect 3 innocent children?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Only the soft turning of Isaiah's pages and the faint murmur of children's voices drifted in the distance. Theo trembled. He had no defense, only the choking weight of regret. At last, his voice came hoarse. "I can't change the past, but please, give me a chance to make it right now." Simone stood in silence. On her face lay years of pride, hurt, and responsibility. Part of her longed to turn away, to lock every door. Yet another part, the most fragile, remembered that this man had once been the love of her life. Suddenly, Xavier spoke up. "Mommy, he's crying." Both of them jolted. Simone turned, and it was true. Theo's eyes were red, a tear sliding down his cheek. He hadn't even noticed until his son pointed it out. In that instant, the iron wall around Simone's heart cracked, just a fraction. She turned quickly, hiding her eyes. "That's enough, Theo," she said, though her voice lacked its former steel. "That's enough for tonight." Theo nodded, as if receiving both a sentence and a glimmer of hope. He bent his head, drew in a long breath, and murmured, "I won't give up." Simone didn't reply. She called to the children, taking their hands and leading them out of the gallery, leaving Theo alone in the still golden light. Outside, the music of the gala drifted faintly, belonging to another world. But for Theo, everything had changed. He knew this was only the beginning. That night, Theo barely slept. The city outside still blazed with light, glass towers reflecting the cold moon. But inside his luxurious penthouse, the silence was heavier than ever. He sat by the wide window, eyes empty as they gazed down at the Hudson, his mind haunted by a single image, Simone, with 3 children clinging to her dress. The ache of loss mingled with a fragile hope, trapping him in a restless half-dream. Near dawn, his phone buzzed. A short message appeared on the screen. "If you truly want to meet, 3 p.m. at Riverside Park, but don't expect anything more than watching the children play." Just one line cold, but still a crack in the door. Theo's heart pounded wildly. That afternoon he arrived at Riverside Park in attire simpler than usual. A loosened tie, polished shoes now dusted from walking a long stretch instead of taking a car. He needed the time to breathe, to brace himself for this moment. From a distance, he spotted Simone on a bench, holding a book, though her eyes weren't on the pages. The triplets played in the playground, their brown hair and gray-blue eyes catching the late Sunday. Theo stopped, keeping his distance. He feared that rushing in would only drive Simone further away. Sunlight poured over his shoulders, haloing him faintly, while tension slicked his palms with sweat. He moved forward slowly, eyes fixed on the three boys darting across the sand. Suddenly, the liveliest one, Micah, looked up and spotted him. Curiosity lit his eyes, and a wide smile broke across his face. He pointed toward Theo, his small voice carrying in the air, freezing the world for a heartbeat. In that instant, something melted in Theo's chest. Isaiah still clung timidly to his mother's shadow, while Xavier watched in silence, as if weighing whether the stranger before him could be trusted. Their hesitance, Simone's guarded stance, all of it hurt him, yet steeled him even more. A small ball rolled to his feet. He bent, picked it up, hesitated a moment, then gently kicked it back. The ball rolled between him and the boys in a slow rhythm, forming a fragile circle. Such a simple act, such an ordinary moment, but to Theo, it felt like a miracle. He, who had lived among boardrooms and lavish parties, now found joy in the laughter of three children. From the bench, Simone watched. Her lips curved faintly, but her eyes stayed cautious. She knew children's joy could spark easily and vanish just as quickly. She could not let them bear the weight of his absence again. When the ball game ended, the boys ran back to her, cheeks flushed, hair tousled. Theo lowered himself onto a bench a few steps away, saying nothing, only watching their laughter. Inside him, a new resolve began to take shape. As the sun slanted low across the grass, Micah tugged at his hand, pulling him toward the sandpit to build castles. At first, Theo only sat, hands folded, watching. But the open innocence in their eyes was irresistible. He knelt down, rolled up his sleeves, and soon those hands that once turned million-dollar contracts were clumsily packing handfuls of sand. The children burst out laughing whenever he toppled a tower, while Xavier issued instructions with the gravity of a young architect. Sand clung to his trousers, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. When the sun began to set, Simone rose and called her sons. They left the sandpit with dusty shoes and bright eyes. Theo stood, brushing sand from his palms. His gaze met Simone's not with arrogance or charm, but with humility, almost a plea. She looked at him for a brief moment. In the golden glow, she saw a different Theo, stripped of glitter, trying to reclaim the chance to be a father, a partner. But the wounds inside her had not yet healed. She said nothing, only gave a small nod, a fragile thread of hope. As Simone led the boys away, Theo remained still, watching their figures fade into the sunset. His heart ached, yet swelled with a new determination. He would not let the past repeat itself. However hard the road ahead, today at least he had laid the first stone. The evening breeze slid through the trees at Riverside, carrying the sweet dampness of earth and the scent of fresh grass. After the ball games and sandcastles, Simone led her three boys home. Just before stepping onto the wooden stairs that led inside, she froze. Behind her, Theo still stood silently, his shadow stretched long across the leaf-covered street. That tall, familiar frame made her heart ache, but her feet urged her toward safety. She thought it would end there, an afternoon enough for him to taste fleeting joy, nothing more. But his voice rose, low and husky, stopping her. Not a command, not a defense, just a plea. "Simone, give me a few minutes, just you and me." Her shoulders tightened. For years, she had locked those memories away, buried with tears and humiliation. But the way her boys' eyes had lit up while playing with him, their innocent honesty made it impossible to pretend the past had never happened. She sighed, turning toward the aunt who had been waiting on the porch. The older woman gave a slight nod and led the children inside, leaving a quiet space between the two of them. Simone stepped down, facing Theo beneath the streetlight. The yellow glow sharpened the weariness and resolve on his face. She crossed her arms, keeping distance, her voice steady. "What do you want? The truth? Then listen." The words cut like a blade, unlocking old wounds. She remembered that night, a lavish party at his family's estate. While she forced polite smiles under prying eyes, his wealthy mother pulled her into a dark corner. Sweet voice, poisonous words. If she truly loved Theo, she should leave him, because she was nothing but a stain on their high society world. Those words crushed Simone's pride like a hammer. And when she returned, trembling, desperate for his arms to shield her, she found only suffocating silence. He hesitated, caught between love and family approval. That silence said it all. Simone left in the rain, carrying a shattered heart. Not long after, she discovered she was pregnant. She recounted every detail, her voice even, though her eyes shimmered with pain. Do you know, in those early days, I picked up the phone so many times, wanting to tell you. But every time I thought of the face I saw that night, of that silence, I couldn't. I didn't believe you would choose us. I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, your family would do everything to take the children from me. So, I chose silence. Silence to protect them even if the price was losing you forever. The confession fell like the toll of a heavy bell. The air around them thickened, as if the entire city were listening. Theo shuddered. He had imagined countless scenarios, but nothing cut deeper than hearing her voice confirm that very fear. He stood there, his hand unconsciously clenching, nails digging into his palm. Under the streetlight, his face darkened with regret. No words of defense could erase it. All he could whisper, like admitting a crime, was, "I let you go, and because of that, you had to carry everything alone." Simone turned away, unwilling to see the tear glistening at the corner of his eye. But her own heart trembled in ways she refused to acknowledge. For years, she had built armor of pride to shield her pain. Now, with this man trembling before her, that armor began to crack. Silence stretched, broken only by the hum of late summer cicadas. Both sank into their private streams of memory. For Theo, the vision of the woman he had let slip away. For Simone, the endless lonely nights of pregnancy. And between them, the undeniable truth. The three boys in the lit house behind them were proof of a love once crushed, but never fully dead. Finally, Simone spoke, her voice hoarse. "I don't need pity. What I need is certainty. Are you really here, Theo? Or is this just another fleeting impulse in your glittering life?" The question hung heavy, both a test and a last chance. Theo drew a deep breath, lifted his head, and looked straight at her. In his eyes, for the first time, there was no pride, only raw sincerity. He didn't answer immediately, because he knew words alone weren't enough. He would have to prove it with actions, day by day, hour by hour. But in that moment, beneath the streetlight, an unspoken vow burned in his gaze. He would stay. Simone shivered. She hadn't forgiven, and she didn't yet trust. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, the door wasn't completely closed. Are you still here, my dear audience? Pause for a moment. Maybe take a sip of water, then continue listening to this captivating story. Comment 1 if you're finding it interesting. And don't forget to hit subscribe. In the days after that conversation beneath the streetlight, Theo changed. No more late nights of wine and endless boardroom meetings. No more glittering parties where his name was called under flashing cameras. Instead, he began showing up in places so simple it startled those who knew him. A playground in the park, a small cafe near the preschool, even the old wooden benches by the river. At first, Simone kept her distance. She didn't allow him to step straight into the children's lives, but she didn't push him away either. She watched, silently, like a guard at the gate, waiting to see if his patience was real or just another flame that would burn out as quickly as it began. Theo started with the smallest things. He learned to crouch down and tie Micah's shoelaces, his hands once fluent with thick contracts clumsy with tiny knots. He listened patiently when Isaiah confessed his fear of thunderstorms, sitting beside him under the porch just to show that every storm passes. He let Xavier lead board games, proud and bossy like a little general, and when he lost, he simply smiled and endured, letting the boy savor his victory. Once, all four of them sat by Lake Michigan on a windy afternoon. Micah tossed stones into the water, Isaiah clutched his worn teddy bear, and Xavier sat quietly, observing Theo as if taking notes. Theo didn't speak much, he just sat among them, listening to laughter, to wind, to the soft slap of waves against the shore, and in that calm, he felt a stillness he hadn't known in years. Simone saw it all. She still wore her armor of doubt, but at times, when she caught the sparkle in her children's eyes as they looked at Theo, her heart shifted ever so slightly. For years, she had only seen them through the lens of a single mother, weighed down by endless responsibility. Now, watching them laugh in the arms of the man who had once failed them, she realized something. There are joys only a father's presence can bring. Yet joy always carried fear. At night, when the boys were asleep, Simone would sit alone in the living room. the warm lamp casting light over piles of books and toy boxes. In her mind, she still heard the cruel words of Theo's mother, spoken years ago. What if this time he chose family and reputation again over her and the children? What if the trust she dared to plant was crushed once more? Meanwhile, Theo remained patient. He didn't push, didn't demand instant forgiveness. He picked the kids up from school a few afternoons, learned to make simple breakfasts with them, even spent hours on the floor helping piece together Lego sets. Small things, repeated day after day, slowly built a foundation no million-dollar contract could ever buy. One evening, as the crimson sunset washed over the city, Isaiah suddenly ran to him, wrapping little arms around his leg and whispering, "I like you here." Theo's heart clenched. He bent down, pulling the boy close, hiding a tear in his soft hair. From the porch, Simone watched. She said nothing, but for the first time, her eyes no longer carried thorns. From afar, the world had begun to whisper. Paparazzi photos spread. Kensington, the millionaire, sitting on the grass with 3 little boys. Kensington carrying one on his shoulders through the park. The news buzzed, gossip swirled. But unlike before, Theo didn't run. He let the images spread, a silent declaration. This was his family, and he was not ashamed. The news broke on a bleak morning. On the front page of a major Chicago paper, a photo of Theo carrying Xavier on his shoulders, tiny hands clutching his polished leather shoes, was printed alongside a bold headline. Millionaire Kensington, 3 secret children. In an instant, Simone's phone buzzed non-stop. Interview requests, curious messages, even anonymous threats. Outside the little house, paparazzi gathered, cameras flashing whenever the door cracked open. The suffocating air pressed Simone into a corner. She was afraid not just for herself, but for the 3 innocent boys. That afternoon, Theo appeared, not as the cold businessman he once was, but as a weary man, shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his sleepless eyes. He stood at her door, facing Simone. No distance, no excuses, only one choice to be made. "Trust me." His voice was low, but firm. "This time, I won't let anyone take you and the children away." And, before the words settled, a luxury car pulled up. His parents stepped out, faces hard with authority. The mother who once forced Simone to leave still carried the same haughty gaze, only now shadowed by the tension of scandal spreading. She didn't mince words. "If you truly want to protect those children's future, give them to us. Private schools, personal nurses, everything will be provided. But don't turn them into tools to disgrace this family." Simone paled, instantly wrapping her arms around the boys. Old fears surged back, that cruel voice echoing like a wound that had never healed. But this time, Theo didn't stay silent. He stepped forward, standing between Simone and his parents. His face tightened, his voice thundered. If you can't accept Simone and these 3 children as my family, then I choose them. Not you, not the Kensington name, only them." In that moment, a permanent crack split the high society family bond he had once bowed to protect. But in his eyes, there was no hesitation. The air stretched taut. Simone looked at him, tears filling her gaze. She could hardly believe the man who had stayed silent the night she left now dared to stand up against his own powerful family. The children quietly witnessed it all. Micah clung tightly to his mother's hand. Isaiah trembled behind her shoulder, while Xavier stood still, his sharp eyes far older than his years. Then suddenly, Xavier stepped forward, looking straight at Theo. From his young lips came a trembling but clear word. "Dad." The world froze. Simone forgot to breathe. Theo dropped to his knees instantly, eyes wide, brimming with tears. From his lips came a broken sob he couldn't hold back. Micah quickly chimed in, as if set free. "Dad, will you build sandcastles with us again?" Isaiah hesitated, his gaze flickering between his mother and the man before him. Then slowly, he whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Dad." The whole world seemed to burst open in that moment. No more camera flashes, no more gossip. Only a family, reunited after 5 lost years. Simone clutched her children, tears streaming without restraint. Theo wrapped his arms around all 4, and for the first time in his life, he felt he truly belonged not in skyscrapers or profit charts, but in the warm embrace, heartbeats, and breaths of family. In the distance, his parents turned away, their stone faces fading into the dusk. They had lost their son to a love they could never control. But to Theo, it wasn't a loss. It was a homecoming. And so, after years of running, the truth finally spilled from the innocent lips of the children. Dad. Just one word, yet powerful enough to shatter every wall of pride. Strong enough to heal wounds that once seemed beyond repair. Simone had trembled at the flash of cameras, anxious as the shadow of the Kensington family loomed over her life once more. But this time, Theo stood on her side, on the side of family. He let go of the reputation he once guarded at all costs, only to hold on to 3 little boys and the woman he had never stopped loving. Their story did not end here. This was only the first step on a long road ahead, learning how to raise the children together, how to mend the scars of the past, and how to trust in a future that might still bring storms. But that night, in the arms of his small family, Theo knew he was no longer alone, and Simone realized, sometimes love is strong enough to deserve a second chance. And what about you? If you were Simone, would you dare reopen the door of a broken heart? If you were Theo, would you be ready to give up everything to win back your family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories where love, faith, and healing always find light, even in the darkest places. See you again in the next chapter of this journey.